Hello and welcome. You're listening to Building Blank,
a collaborative world-building podcast.
We're your hosts, Travis
And Greg.
And today we're diving into the world of urban legends. A king once paid a visit to the night fort. Due to some offense by the king, of which none now remember, the cook killed the king's son and served his flesh in a pie to the unknowing king. The king enjoyed the pie so much, he asked for a second helping. The gods cursed the cook by turning him into a fat, white rat, which could only survive by feasting on his own young. He was condemned to run the halls of the night fort, eating his own offspring. The gods were not offended by the murder, nor even by the cooking of the son and feeding him to his own father, for a man has a right to vengeance. What the gods could not forgive, and cursed the cook for, was that he broke the laws of hospitality and protection, which are held to be sacred above all others. That was the story of the rat cook from Game of Thrones.
Nice. Good quote. I love that.
Yeah, I made a couple little edits just because it's never actually told like that.
Oh, he splits it up?
It's like they're talking about a story. So I made Brian just couldn't remember why he was cursed. And it never tells me why. Like in the wiki, it didn't tell me. So anyway, hello and welcome.
Yeah.
We're talking about urban legends today and myths and such.
Right on. And so what can you tell me about that this week?
I just want to make a real quick note here. I feel that there's a ton of stuff to talk about here. So we're only going to really scratch the surface, but this is another one of those topics that creativity is king in. You can literally take what we say with a grain of salt and do whatever you want. These are just some little things that I feel make the world, whether it be a D&D game or a writing, feel more lived in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has some real history, you know? So what am I talking about when I say urban myths? What is the difference between this and like a legend or the mythos that we created a couple episodes ago?
Mm-hmm.
Greg, you did a little research in this.
Yeah, so just like the main difference would be, and like you can really get into it, but like myths, the main players are gods and heroes, and time is undetermined, right? That kind of goes back to the Dawn era.
The Dawn era, yeah.
We were talking about, right? Like just, it's real high level kind of universal stuff. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily, but right, just we think of it that way. And then legends are kind of like the step down from that, where it's about heroes, but then also kings and kind of like the noble and the upper class. Yeah. But then it's also
the history.
Yeah, for the most of human history, legend was history. Yeah. Right? Like they believed those things actually happened.
Up until fairly recently, in the grand scheme.
In the grand scheme, yeah. And then folktales are about the common folk. So even kind of going down even further and getting closer to just like real world sort of things almost.
Yeah, because I don't believe that the common folk would necessarily be taught. I mean, it depends on your world, of course, but they don't know the history, right?
Yeah, maybe not, right? Like, yeah. And then it's common folk, but also common problems kind of. Yeah. And like life lessons and all that. And then there's a lot of these stories can be etiological.
Okay, what does that mean?
It just means something like how something came to be. Like the spider myth with Arachne being a better weaver than Athena. And then since she's better than Athena, Arachne gets turned into a spider. Yeah. Which is where we get like, like the Greek or the Latin, I guess, arachnophobia and all that, right? Yeah. And then, so that's supposed to be the origin of spiders. So that would be etiological. And then like a creation myth is just by its nature etiological because it's
how something came to be. Yeah, it's how the world came to be. But these are a little different. Yeah. They can be etiological. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking, what I want to focus on is a more localized version of myths. So instead of like the whole country, the kingdom believing in like the creation myth, we're talking about like a very small geographical area, like one village or town and maybe its nearest neighbors, or the town surrounding one specific forest. And that's like the only place you'll ever hear these stories.
Yeah. Okay.
So these can include nursery rhymes or children's stories. Another thing they can include is cryptids, or rumors, and then just so much more.
Yeah, just any like local story, really.
Yeah,
right?
most of these examples can be woven together, and very often they have either a grain or a root in truth.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at nursery rhymes for a second here. So we all know about Humpty Dumpty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the cow that jumped over the moon. You know, there's these tales that were told as children, often in like a more song form or as like a bedtime story. And they usually convey some kind of wisdom or lesson, right? Just like how the rat cook teaches the importance of the law of hospitality in Westeros.
Right. Okay. So it's got its core. There's a lesson there.
There's a lesson there. And like Humpty Dumpty is based on truth. I don't remember the exact story, but you know, most of these things are things that happened. Right?
Yeah. And then they've just kind of been turned into a folktale.
Yeah.
Like they talk about that in Lord of the Rings with Bilbo,
Mm-hmm.
how he kind of turns into a folk hero almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
So
he shows up with a flash and a bang, carrying gold
yeah,
or something.
so like the hobbits of Hobbiton have rumors of what he actually did, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, apparently there's tunnels under Bag End that are just filled with gold,
Yeah, and then
even
just
though he
kinda-
came home with like one chest.
and the story just runs away from itself.
Yeah.
And it becomes this.
This local legend.
Yeah.
Also, fables fit under this category. They're much the same, except all the characters are either animals or anthropomorphized objects of some kind.
Right. Okay.
Like the gingerbread man running away and talking to all the animals, and then, you know, getting eaten by the fox crossing the river.
Yeah. Good example.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like tortoise and the hare kind of thing.
Yeah, anything like that, that would fit under this category.
Yeah. So kind of like directed towards children, maybe a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or even like, you know, just things people believed, right? And that brings us to the next thing that people believe in, and that'll be cryptids. And if anyone doesn't know what a cryptid is, sorry, they're these really cool, unexplained creatures that haunt the night.
Yeah.
So, like fairy tales, they often teach a grim lesson, which is almost always don't be caught outside after dark.
Yeah.
So many things.
It's funny. Just like, I don't know. I don't think you intentionally did that, but they teach a Grimm lesson, like the brothers.
Yeah,
Grimm.
I did that intentionally.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because they wrote like a bunch of different versions of that book, and like in the first versions, the wolf ate Little Red Riding Hood,
Yeah.
right? But then by the end, does she die in the end?
Not in the current,
No,
but in
okay.
a lot of those fairy tales, the children involved almost always die.
Yeah, and then they kind of like they made it more G-rated, I guess.
Eventually,
they
yeah.
kept
Well, as
making them.
Disney took over.
Well, then once Disney took over, then
It's yeah. So like things like the boogeyman, Bigfoot, even though it's not really a danger, Loch Ness monster. You know, don't go into the lake alone, right? They all fall into this category. Also, things like the Mothman or the Wendigo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, El Chupacabra, and it's usually a way for people to explain why people go missing,
Yeah.
or why livestock is going missing. Very often, like, it's just, you know, wolves or something, you know, some kind of predator. But here's the fun part. We're world building in fantasy. Cryptids don't have to be mythological.
Yeah, that's true.
They can be real living creatures. Rare, maybe, because for them to be like a myth that, oh, hush, hush, there's only, you know, they're only being talked about here. Maybe it's the lost of its kind or something.
True. Yeah.
You know? And again, there's so much information on cryptids out there that could be its whole episode itself. And there's so many rabbit holes. Every time my YouTube algorithm knows that, it always shows me, hey, cryptid video for this. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to go in that rabbit hole and waste a whole bunch of time that I don't have. Yeah, so that's just one thing that, you know, can be really fun to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a hoax some kids pulled.
Yeah. I like that you say like it's a way for people to explain livestock or people going missing. Because yeah, like even if it's something scary that's doing it, it's the unknown is still scarier,
Exactly.
right? Like oh yeah, we don't know why. It's like, oh yeah, the old chupacabra got him again.
Chupacabra got him. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
That's what gets the goats. Don't go outside after dark, children.
Yeah, they'll get your goat.
That's a little side tangent. Your mom said that to me one time when we were in high school.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? What does that even mean?
Yeah, I'd never heard it actually either until like later.
Yeah, that's funny. So another thing that we can look at in this section here are rumors. And again, a lot of these things tie in together. So do the kids of the village believe that old Grelka, who lives at the edge of town, is she a witch?
Okay.
You know? Is the abandoned house haunted? You know? Is the local lord secretly Randy Marsh? I mean, a vampire.
Local lord. Yeah.
You know, things like that. Like, people gossip. And really common folk, town folk, they don't get the news, right?
Yeah.
Their news is talking to their neighbor or chit-chatting with the other people after church service or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where their news is coming from. They're not getting reports or anything like the king or lords would.
And even their news could be based on like some sort of scrying or, you know what I mean? Like ask the local wise woman,
Yeah.
you know, what's the weather going to be like or what should I plant?
Exactly. These rumors also like worked well when they're mixed with cryptids. Maybe the common folk think that the town is cursed with the chupacabra because the prince was mean to an old woman and she cursed them to get, you know, all their sheep eaten. Who knows? Like you can mix and match so much here that the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, and just like speaking of that mixing and matching, I just ended up looking up some stuff. So talking about the brothers Grimm there,
Yeah.
I guess they were really the kind of the first folklorists. Well, actually, I don't know if they were the first. I mean, there's like Aesop's fables, right? So they're going way back.
Well, didn't
to ancient
they
Greece.
like just collect
Mhm.
and like compile them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took like all the Germanic ones,
Mhm.
and then they said that it came from the common people because like it was thought to be like a repository of like of real truth.
Yeah.
Being in like the peasants and stuff, but apparently they got most of their stories from like educated like men and women.
That's interesting. Here's another good rumor. Maybe Farmer John's son didn't really move on to the big city, but he's actually murdered by a scorned lover.
Yeah, and she
You
just
know?
comes back and says that she left him or something. Or
Yeah,
left
he
her.
ran off to the city. Who knows? Like, the possibilities here are endless. And they're really good little hooks that you can use as a DM to, like, maybe your characters or your players want to, like, you know, investigate this chupacabra sightings. I air quoted, but you guys can't see that, obviously. So yeah, they make really good hooks for quests, and these examples really just scratch the surface. There's so many possible combinations and so many examples that we don't have the time for, right? I want to touch on why I say they're localized.
Okay.
Because most fantasy takes place pre-industrial. So we got no internet. We got no newspaper. We got no printing press. You know, we only know about the Mothman myth which is a cryptid from this tiny little town on the eastern coast of the United States because, you know, it was in a newspaper and then it became, you know, an internet sensation.
Okay.
Right? Eventually. I think the first sighting was in like the 70s or something. But in medieval fantasy, the common folk, again, especially in rural areas, they're getting their news from their neighbors, right? They're not even talking to the lords.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
how often are they getting any kind of news about, you know, the war going on 10, 30, 40 miles away? They might not even know what's happening, right?
Yeah, they're just doing their thing every day.
Yeah. Get up, go to work in the fields, and come back home.
Yeah, that's about it. Making sure you got enough to eat.
And if we, like, even us 200 years ago, living here in Manitoba, we wouldn't know anything about the chupacabra or any other cryptid.
Yeah.
Right?
Unless, like, yeah, like the general people.
Yeah.
Like there would be probably a cryptozoologist that would know about it.
Yeah, but are they living in Winnipeg? Come on.
Yeah, true.
Right? So yeah, that's about where I have it here. After the break, we're going to talk about what we worked on this week, as well as some listener submissions. So let's go refill our teacups, and see you then. And welcome to the break. This is the part of the show where we're not talking about myths and legends and scary things.
So what are we talking about on the
So
break?
we're going to talk about Tavern Talk.
Ooh.
So this week we did our first attempt, and it went okay. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think we figured it out by the end. So this week coming up, we're actually going to move the time slot down to 7 to 8, and we're going to be painting minis.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that way we don't have to have a bunch of computers in front of us. So
Yeah.
so join us. We're going to be painting minis, answering questions, chit-chatting with you guys. I believe Emma is joining us again, she said.
Nice.
So,
So we tried to be on Discord and Facebook. So this time we're just going to do Facebook, right?
Yeah, we're just going to do Facebook Live. It was too difficult to link them both together, so, and then still be able to, run the live video. So we're just going to do Facebook Live this time. All right, and I did want to talk about a little bit about podcasting in general this week.
Okay.
I really want to support other podcasters who are new and starting out. So some people I follow on TikTok started their own podcast called Unprepared Casters.
All right.
And it was a really cool concept. What they're doing is one of them's DMing a little short arc, like a 8-episode arc or whatever. And then the other person will take over, and they're going to do a spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off as they go, with different casts every time. And it's a neat idea, and it's kind of like how we're doing our collaborative thing.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of building a world from scratch, and then each person doing their own thing. So yeah, check them out. They're called Unprepared Casters. This isn't sponsored. I just really liked it. I love the energy. I listened to it this week, and I like supporting other people who are just starting out, because it's scary.
Yeah. And don't they just have their first episode only, right?
Yeah, it's only one episode so far.
Yeah, they just came out.
Came out. I mean, by the time this airs, it'll be 2 episodes, because they come out on Mondays. I liked it. I enjoyed it. So yeah, shout out to them. And I think my tea is done steeping, so that means it's time to get back to the show. And welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. So last week we talked about making a local folktale for our towns that we had made, right? So Travis, what did you come up with this week, for your Snowhamshire?
So the halfling population of Snowhamshire, they have a neighbor.
Oh.
Okay. And in the woods near Snowhamshire, or very close to Snowhamshire, lives an old gnomish lady.
Okay.
Okay. And she's older. She's been around. She's been living in those woods longer than the oldest halflings remember.
It's kind of like she was old when I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And they call her Old Grelka. Now, Old Grelka is a gnomish lady, and the kids and, the people, are all hush hush about her. They think she's a witch. Okay. She's strange. She does weird things. She very, very rarely comes into town. She's kind of like, the old hermit stereotype. But Old Grelka is just a really old gnome, which I believe gnomes outlive halflings. I don't know exactly how long halflings live, but I kind of equate they're just a little bit more than humans. Gnomes are a bit above that. Yeah. In my headcanon anyway. So
your headcanon.
Yeah.
I like that.
So Old Grelka is impossibly old. She's super kind of you look at her and you're like, oh, she's old. How is she that old? Right? Even for a gnome. And she's a druid.
Okay.
So she is a spellcaster. She's a druid, but she's so old and kind of senile, she doesn't remember what her name is. And if you actually take the time to talk to her, she's the sweetest, nice lady, right? Nice lady. Cannot for the life of her remember who you are or what you're doing, and she'll tell you stories that make no sense. She'll tell you one story and then another story that contradicts everything she just said. Okay, so and she's just fucking crazy. And this is a D&D character that I played in our friend Boone's game. Yeah. And it's just so much fun being old and senile. And she just lives in her woods and cultivates her mushrooms. And I imagine she lives in a hut out of a hollowed out tree.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Like a Keebler elf almost.
Keebler elf? What the heck's that?
Like the cookies.
Oh, that's what they're called.
Yeah, Keebler cookies.
Oh, okay.
They live in a little tree.
Yeah.
Have you never seen those commercials?
No, I remember that. Like those were when we were young.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But yeah, so that's old Grelka. The children are terrified of her because she's just this like, hey, don't go into the woods. Grelka will get you and she'll eat you.
Old Grelka.
Old Grelka. So yeah, and what did you come up with this week?
Well, I ended up trying making it way too big than I meant to, but basically I wanted to explain two things. How Mount Ashrin got its name, and so about going back to like the hero Ashrin Zarella there. But then also I was thinking of this concept of maybe when a Tethi Vala, like an orc wayfinder, dies.
Okay.
It's kind of like customary to plant their staff where they die.
Okay.
But then I thought like that could get real dark, and you just kind of end up with like if wayfinders died in like a battle or something, it would just kind of like you just have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of thinking about how Mount Ashrin and then also like a bunch of these sticks or like staffs marked kind of the border between where the orcs and the Wolfthorpe, well, where Wolfthorpe ended, but also telling basically like the wayfinders to like that's where
this
they
is
stop.
where you stop. You don't go any further.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking like, yeah, I'm not going to go way into it just because I ended up basically writing a short story.
Okay.
So I don't want to go into it. But I was thinking like going back to Lee's submissions about how they were in the equator and then moved north, and then kind of about how the elves were like stubborn. I was thinking about how maybe all the elves like started, and in their history they think they were the first people. Yeah. And whether they were or not, it doesn't really matter. But then the animals like seeing them, and this is where I was thinking like folktale kind of having that animal aspect, seeing them kind of took pity on them. They're like, okay, well, we better help these elves. So, I was thinking like maybe the horses come and they're like, hey, we'll teach you how to run and eat grass and stuff, right? Like grains, like wheat and all that. And then I was also thinking like maybe the crows. I couldn't figure out whether I should do the crows or the vultures.
Okay.
Like in this time of peace aren't really eaten very much. So they after a bunch of different elves end up going with like different animals to learn different things. Maybe there's just like these crows are going and like sow dissent among them so that all these different clans start fighting each other, like saying like
so that there be stuff for them to eat.
Yeah, they're like, hey,
that's so cool.
Did you hear what the horse people said about you? Lion elves or whatever. Okay. And then they're like, what? Those bastards. Yeah. And then they just like go and eat them. And then now there's like not many of them left or something. And then everybody starts riding horses. And then now the horses are getting eaten by the crows as well because they're dying in battle.
Yeah.
And then I thought like maybe the most stubborn ones were kind of like left last, where they're like, no, we're not going anywhere. We're elves. We're staying right here. And the leader of them are like, like the surrogate leader, kind of like
the wolves.
Was this Ashrin?
Okay.
And then the wolves kind of seeing them knew that they were stubborn, so maybe they just like they didn't come straight out and say like, hey, we'll be your teachers, but just kind of like they come to their rescue when they're getting attacked or something.
Okay.
And then they finally decide like, okay, we'll go with these guys. We'll go up north with them. And then when they get up north, and like they kind of go as like equals more or less, but then when they get up north, now they're in like the orc territory, right?
Yeah.
And so then there's just conflict naturally.
Yeah. And
then, I just thought like,
so Ashrin was a historical figure for the elves.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, how true is it?
Yeah.
Like that's maybe what they say, but maybe it's like a blending of a bunch of different peoples.
Yeah.
Or it's like maybe Mount Ashrin was its name first, and then they made up this. Because that's another thing about the etiological thing. It's like there's obviously spiders before this myth, right? And then it's like, so how did we get them? So it's like maybe Mount Ashrin was already something, and
so it's ambiguous.
Yeah, and that's kind of like leaving it up to the reader.
It's very provocative. Gets the people going.
But so I was thinking maybe Mount Ashrin was like the traditional border between the two, like what they sort of decided on after some wars and stuff. And she would just like sit up there in this story, and then like how she dies is she goes down to where the Tethi Vala, like the fence of all these staffs are, and those are like attributed to her killing them all.
Okay.
And then dying in like a glorious death. But meanwhile, it's like been over hundreds or maybe even thousands of years
of this happening. Okay.
Yeah, and then they're just like, oh yeah, no, that's what happened.
That's cool. I like that.
So I didn't want to go into it too much because that's like making major changes to the creation in the world, right?
Yeah.
So none of that has to be true or anything, but
It could be their local legends, though.
at least it's true to them.
Yeah.
Right. And then,
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, when you make some mythos, you don't have to. All the people in your world don't have to believe it.
and
right?
it doesn't even need to be true for your sake.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't need to be canon, but it's canon that it's their belief.
That's what these specific people believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think a lot of people forget when they're writing in fantasy is like, oh, this is what it is, and everyone knows it. Well, no, they don't.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is no internet.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before we started, though. It's like, yeah, maybe mass media wasn't around, like, pre-industrial, but there could be like mass means of communication through magic.
Yeah. But do the common people have access to it?
Yeah, and it's like, if they were magical, would they still be common?
Probably not.
Right? Like if common people did get access to it, kind of like by definition that would make them not common anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and I like that you brought up Lee because she gave us some submissions. So there's a
nice.
couple here.
I love Lee's submissions.
Yeah, me too. And we're gonna start at the top here. So she gave us three towns.
Yeah.
So there's a line break in a page.
So this
break.
is going back to towns and local heroes.
Yes, from last week. What we talked about last week.
Yeah.
So in the town of Blackrock, which is a human town near a mountain range, named for the local coal seam.
Okay, cool. I like that.
Yeah. There's a hero named Jackson Fairchild. He defeated a local marauding wild boar herd. Ended up donating the meat to the town in the middle of a lean winter.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that would be a local hero, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's a big deal to that town, but like in the grand scale of things, it's like,
in the grand scale, probably anyone who's not from that town has never heard of him.
yeah,
But, in that town, he's, they probably erected a statue of him.
they might have a day,
They might have a day. Yeah.
and
they have a holiday.
they cook a bunch of wild boars or something.
Yeah, I like it. So, yeah. So we're going to have to find a spot on the map for that.
Yeah, well, close to the mountains, so that's good.
Yeah.
And
So, and then we go to the town of Cinderglen, which is a halfling town named for their superior local orchards.
wait, is it Cider Glen?
Cider Glen, I guess.
Yeah.
That is totally what it says. I cannot read.
Cinder Glen is pretty cool though too.
That does sound cool.
Sounds like a lava town or
Yeah,
something.
but it's Cider Glen. Okay. The hero is Humbert Blackthorn. Traveled for more than a fortnight to bring back a druid that could cure a horrible blight in the fruit trees.
Yeah. Again, I like that. Just like the emphasis on the local there, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then the next one is the town of Kiernok.
Kiernok. maybe?
Kiernok. Okay,
Yeah.
it's an elven town. It's near a dark forest and a peat bog. The hero is the town founder, Oros Barkrog, explorer of the wild lands and frontiersman from early history. So I
Okay.
like that. So that works kind of into what you were just saying. So
yeah. Very similar, like the town
like a
founder
very early town. I like it. Perfect. And I think with that, we're going to move on into our weekly inspiration.
All right.
So, Greg, what inspired you this week?
Okay, so I was kind of just messing around on that name generator and found that they have a swear word generator.
Really?
Yeah, and
That's cool.
so I was clicking it a few times, it gives you like the 10 submissions.
Yeah.
And I found one set of 10 that were pretty funny that I saved so that I
Okay.
could tell you. And so let's see what we think of these.
And you haven't told me these yet.
No.
No.
And well, I don't want to like oversell them.
Yeah.
But so the first one is just dung beetle, which
Dung
is like,
beetle. Okay.
okay, whatever.
Get it.
Then there's deadbeat dodo.
You deadbeat dodo.
I don't know, it's kind of funny. Merlin's beard. It's like, well,
By Merlin's beard.
we might not have Merlin in our thing, but whatever.
Could.
Then cabbage head.
Hey, cabbage head.
Cabbage head. What are they called? Space buns. Then there's flipping frogs.
Flippin' frogs.
Duck herder.
Ooh, that'd be hard.
Herding ducks.
Herding
yeah.
ducks, yeah.
Then crumb cake.
Oh, crumb cake.
Then this is why I included this one, because this one, barnacles.
Buy my barnacles.
Right, going back to our
Yeah.
barnacle king.
Yeah.
Then the
And SpongeBob.
last two are kind of funny here. Dust on crackers.
Dust on what?
Dust on crackers.
Dust on crackers. That's
I don't even know what it means.
it's provocative. It gets the people going.
And then the last one is son of a banshee.
Son of a banshee. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sweating like a banshee.
They just kept getting better and better.
Yeah, the first one's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Okay,
but then,
I get it. Dung beetle, yeah.
Yeah, but then son of a banshee. That's probably my favorite.
That's fun.
Also,
That's
the dust on crackers, because I don't get it.
I don't understand it. And if anyone can tell us what they think dust on crackers means,
Yeah,
please let us know.
yeah, let us know, because we don't know.
Yeah.
So, what inspired you this week, Travis?
So this week we did our Tavern Talk, right?
Right.
We talked a little bit about that in the break, but we were originally going to do it up in the studio in the office.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was downstairs and I was working on the advertisement picture graphic thing for it.
Right.
And I was actually trying to draw like the wooden wall in my
Okay.
in the living room, and I was like, wait, why don't I just take a picture of it?
That's funny.
And then we were talking, and we have a big table, and there was going to be the three of us. So I go, well, it kind of looks like a tavern in here. That was what we were kind of doing before the pandemic started, was we were trying to make our living room look like a tavern because it was our D&D room, right?
Yeah, and which was fun, right? Get
Yeah,
us kind of in the
exactly.
setting.
So we got like the bookshelf, and I have a couple Halloween sconces that have the thing. I haven't been able to mount them yet, but anyway. So yeah, I think we're going to do most of our Tavern Talks down there, just because it has a good ambience to it.
Yeah, more room.
More room. There's more. I like the look of the wall. So that's kind of what inspired me, because I decided, and I moved all the computer equipment down there. It was a big pain to then move it back up here.
Yeah, no, it was good figuring it out. Like kind of the test run really.
Yeah, it was kind of a test run, and we did run into some technical problems, but it's going to get better next week.
Yeah, and so doing minis, right?
Yeah, we're going to be painting minis. I bought a couple extra bigger ones, so that way we can do bigger ones, and they'll show up on camera a little bit better.
That's awesome. I love painting minis.
It's so much fun. So I gotta prime them this week before we do. But anyway, I think with that, I need to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
What are we doing next week?
Yeah, so next week we're gonna, we're kind of doing this theme where we're getting from like the like universal kind of stuff. We're getting more and more localized, kind of down to earth. So I think we're gonna do regional arts, skills, and pastimes. So
what do you mean by that?
Well, like pipeweed.
Okay.
Like the hobbits think that's an art, right?
# living like a halfling.
Or the scrimshaw from 10 Towns in the Icewind Dale trilogy.
Okay.
Ari Salvador there.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So we're looking for some submission requests for that as well, right?
Yeah. So any submissions that anything we've talked about, even like today or last week or whenever, if you guys want to send anything in, just hit us up on our socials on any post. Or, come hang out with us in Tavern Talk and let us know there. But you can find us on Facebook, Building Blank, a collaborative world building podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Building Blank Podcast. You can email us, I keep getting tongue-tied, buildingblankpodcast@gmail.com, or you can join us in Discord. We're always, at least one of us has it tied to our phone, so we can come say hi or chit-chat or whatever.
Yeah.
We also have a WorldAnvil. Everything we talk about, all the submissions, they all end up on there. So you can scroll through and find articles on everything we've talked about. But with that, I just want to say thank you guys for listening and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you guys.